We'll be starting with the session in 2 minutes, and the feedback form will be shared after the session. So everyone is requested to stay in the meeting. The current count is 160 participants, so we'll start at 12 p.m. exactly. Thank you so much.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Medha.
Okay. So, a very good afternoon to all the dignitaries, guests, and delegates. On this auspicious day of Saraswati Puja, let's welcome the spring season and Shred Lethargy. I, Medha Rastogi, the host of today's session, feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all the presented here with us for the FINVERSE 2022, organized by NIVESH, the Finance and Investment Cell, Department of Commerce of Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi. We appreciate your presence at this difficult time. We'd like to extend our special warm welcome to our guest of honor, Mr. Pankaj Dubey, who has joined us today. He's the co-founder of Power Global Energy Private Limited and also the CEO and founder of D-Spin. Mr. Pankaj Dubey is a TEDx speaker and a well-established name in the Indian automobile industry, having contributed significantly to Yamaha, Hero, and Polaris. He started the mobile business of Intex Technology as business head. He has also received the Excellence Award of Intellectual Icon 2020 at 21st National Management Summit and Pathbreaker in 2016 from L&T. Besides this, he devotes time to motivating the youth across the country and management and engineering colleges. As we continue with the session, a request to all the attendees to hold back their questions until the end of the session. Now we have with us Mr. Vidit Chauhan, the president of Nivesh. Over to you, Vidit.
Thank you, Meda. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sir for taking out the time from his busy schedule to be with us today. It's a great honor and a privilege to have you as an esteemed speaker for our fest. We are really honored and indeed a matter of pride for us to be with us today. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to hand over the platform to Mr. Pankaj Dubey. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vidit. And I have a small PPT I'll share, and we'll open up for questions towards the end of the day. And thank you, the Nivesh team, to invite me to this important session. And I'm happy to share my views here. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Perfect. So we start with this quote from our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji. Successful startups are created by those who are driven by an idea and urge to solve a problem that people face. So I believe that most of you are interested into knowing about the startup. So I have planned today's session with some real life example where I started a joint venture from scratch, and then some other experiences I will share, and also the learnings and how do you get the funding and whatever financial supports, what opportunities are available, how to get the valuation and all of that. So we'll try to keep it brief, but at the same time, I like to take you into some details of the work that has happened where I was involved in the startups. So first of all, I believe that startup has to have a necessary ingredient of shaping the future. Because if you have that, then only you have to get into the startup, that you are not happy with what's happening in the market and you really want to give something extra from your work. And definitely it requires the basic need being you should have the willpower to do something great, because startup is not an easy journey. You have to evaluate and do a lot extra work than just going and working in a uh, company which is already doing great. So you just be part of that, as opposed to that startup is something which is you're creating. And therefore the strong willpower, belief in yourself, and a very positive attitude towards making it happen is very necessary. You also have to learn how to say yes, and also to learn to say no at times. And that is what is the basic ingredients required. Before I go into details, I would also like to mention today's Basant Panchami, and Medha very rightly pointed out about celebrating it as a Saraswati Vandana and Puja, and the kind of a knowledge that we get. I think it is very important for all the students to be very clear that you have to understand the market very well wherever you are present. And to have the knowledge of the market, you should know what are the real values. Sometimes it is not perceived as something different than what reality is. And therefore we all, mostly I believe all of us are Indians out here, but still there are certain things that we ignore, and that is what is required. And I wanted to highlight these. Like the number one Indian value is compassionate. We are very compassionate over like letting the nature, animal, birds, plants, all of that to be ecological balance. And we are very compassionate to people. If there even a slightest of pain to anybody, we really sympathize and want to make the difference. Number two is that our original culture is yoga, and being healthy is the primary purpose, so as to give more to the world. And therefore the yoga forms a very integral part of the culture. Ecological balance, we all worship sun, moon, Jupiter, that we should water the sun. There are so many festivals around moon, and then the Jupiter, which is like a Brihaspati, Gurudev. So, and every of these planets are associated with some plant. So you have to worship on some Saturday people Kapir, and Jupiter is like a Kele Kapur. So all of that is being designed, and you must know that. And if you're going to cater to a customer, and you're trying to serve the customer, you should better know who the customer is, what does he believe, what does he do, and then find a solution. And then feeding animals, like, you often find people carrying food for cow, dog, or birds on all our spiritual, religious functions also have dedication to these animals. Like every time you do a shraddh, then you have to feed for all these three. And so this is also like a balance towards creating an animals and human beings, so that you nurture both sides. Even we have festival associated with snake, Nag Panchami, where you have to feed milk to Nag. So like that, you should know that it's important. Watering plants like banana tree, people tree, tulsi tree. So all of these are like so important, and we are learning it to work towards making a better environment. But that's only possible when you have these plants growing, because this is an extra lungs out here. You have a oxygen and a carbon dioxide system in your body, where you exhale carbon dioxide and you inhale oxygen, and plants do the reverse. And therefore, if there is no plant, you will find it very difficult to survive. And therefore, that has been also taught. So this is another very interesting thing that has been taught by our ancestors, and we have to respect that. And the last and very important and critical point is that Indians are basically very spiritual, very religious. And astrology, no matter people believe or they don't believe, is a very important part. Even the non-believers of astrology, if you ask them to eat non-veg on Tuesday, they would refuse. And if you ask them, okay, get married, so they would say, okay, let's match the horoscope. And and there are so many times, if you say, okay, you have to buy a car, can you buy it on a Saturday? And they say, no, I will not buy on a Saturday. So there's so many rituals and beliefs which are ingrained in the Indian culture, that you have to know that before you bring out your product and services. So in automobiles, like, people don't get much business on Saturday, at least the sales does not happen. So they modify the business accordingly, so that they have less sales on that day, and therefore Sunday is very important, rest of the days are very important, but not so on that day. If you are in the food industry, then you have to really modify your food mix of non-veg and veg on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Saturday, because a lot of people, they don't touch non-veg on these days. Or on Navratri, you find a Kentucky Fried Chicken coming to India and selling vegetarian food. Why? Because they understood that what is the Indian culture. And those who could not understand, and they won't be able to do business. Even you can get Domino's pizza, Navratri pizzas from them. So all of that is something which is very unique to the Indian market. And before going into a startup, you must respect and you must know all these parameters and then enter into any business. A startup also requires a lot of innovation. As we already said, that you have to be very, very innovative in bringing your solution. It can be from learning from the past, like we have the story of Pushpak Viman, where Ravan took Sita ji in a Pushpak Viman from India to Sri Lanka. Then there was a aircraft technology available then, and today there are aircrafts available which are commercially exploited. And tomorrow there'll be new innovation happening where distance between India and US normally takes at a minimum of 12 hours. Right now, it may be possible in 2 hours or 3 hours with the latest technology that the people are working upon. So you can learn from these technologies, like what was the fuel used in Pushpak Viman, and can we find that fuel from the region that would change the country's economy tremendously and overnight if you find that out, and so that all your aircrafts are fueled through that. So innovation and learning from the past is very important. And then what is the latest trend happening? What is the latest technology, gadgets available? How did the mobile phone, which was a Nokia, transform to what we have today? And what all changes happen and what is going to happen in future? So you understand what is going to happen in future and then bring out your products accordingly. The chances of your success is very high. Right now, everybody is talking about electric vehicle, so pollution is very high. And so you can see that how in future, most of the vehicles would become electric and maybe solar powered and using alternate fuels. So all of this is going to happen. Would you be part of that? And can you do a startup in that field is something that you should try to get. And now I'll give you a real life example where I was the CEO and a whole-time director, where a joint venture of a big company like Eicher, which runs Royal Enfield and big buses and all, they have also a joint venture with Volvo and Polaris, the Fortune 500 company, which is an American-based company who have all-terrain vehicles, the leaders in all-terrain vehicles, snow scooters, joining hands together and making a product which is very innovative. And what happened to that project is something we would like to see. There's a short video. Let me try to play if it is possible.
What we've done is we've started ground up. We've looked at the customer first. We've said, what does an independent businessman need? And that's where we started from.
Talking about this project.
Of course, we've studied what other people have done, what competition has done, but no one has done something which is truly ground up as an innovative product for a particular segment, which takes into account all his requirements. What you have here is the open vehicle, and you've got really good comfort and seating. You have a second row right here, which can take 3 people really well. And from this cargo space that you have here of 400 liters, which is a pretty sizable cargo space, you can actually expand it to over 1900 liters. It has mechanical power, electrical power, it has adaptable space, and it's really, really comfortable. It's good for family.
What are the contributions from Polaris have gone into this? And also, what is the future of this JV? What are the new vehicles which we can see from your side as far as Eicher Polaris is concerned?
They're excellent at ride, handling, suspension. And you can see, if you go to the Polaris website, have a look at their vehicles, you can see some DNA carryover also from the Polaris into the design and industrial design of this vehicle.
If it succeeds, will you move towards more personal manufacturing more personal vehicles like car and more vans and kind of vehicles?
That's absolutely not the idea. We're very happy to just serve this segment. The potential of this segment is gigantic. What we want to do is popularize this and really grow it and get scale in this and create an ecosystem for independent businessmen to unlock their potential.
Find us on Facebook.
So this is Siddharth Lal talking about the project.
What we've done is we've started ground up. We've looked at the...
Go back. So this is a very innovative product where we, something like what mobile phone did, like from a Nokia to a smartphones that we have, we tried to bring a car, which was a combination, a vehicle, which is combination of a car, pickup van and a generator all combined into one. A very innovative concept targeted at independent businessmen, which is what Siddharth Lal was talking about. So it was like everybody has like a small businessman, they have a car for the personal use, they have a pickup van for taking goods from one place to another, and then they have a generator at home because there's of electricity issues. So this vehicle combined all three together and tried to do what smartphone did to the mobile phone, and a very innovative concept, and we launched these products. This is the product that we're talking about. Very innovative, great suspension, and it was giving run of the money to all the competition. So this is a personal utility vehicle where it was targeted at independent businessmen who are using currently multiple vehicles, and then they try to get into this one single vehicle and a very attractive price of 2.5 lakh rupees approximately, and to use this for the day-to-day life and make them more income for these people. So what it effectively did was for the business use, personal use, and power application, as I said earlier. And we invested about 36 months to reach to the product commercialization. We put up a factory at Jaipur, a lot of investments went into this of 250 crores and all. A totally greenfield project started at Jaipur. And a very unique concept targeted at businessmen. We created a lot of dealerships and customer journey, did very innovative products, a great organization structure where the chairman was our Polaris president, and was alternatively Siddharth Lal was also chairman for some time. I was the director and CEO. Then there were like current CEO of Polaris Incorporation was also one of the director, and then a couple of more directors from Eicher side. A very strong team, and we did try to execute this project. And this is a small video again that I would like to play, which gives you a perspective of the kind of branding done. This is a cricket team.
When they come back, they'll really make a strong Indian one-day team.
They sat on this vehicle.
Yeah, they're enjoying themselves. They're young and they've got the world at their feet at the moment. Good to see. They all had their moments too. And the winner of the car is sitting in the middle. Instead of in the driver's seat. I mean, if your name is Jasprit Bumrah and MS Dhoni says, I think I fancy a drive, you're not going to say, sorry, but it's my car. You say, okay, sir, and sit in the back. Okay. Like he says, he's a learner. Yeah. Bumrah willingly admitted how much he's learning from Lasith Malinga, and he wants to keep learning. So they could sit next to him and say, sir, I will learn from you. Yes. Dhoni bhai, Mahi bhai. He'll say, Mahi bhai, hum aapse seekh lenge. You think you'd say, sir, apne front seat mein jagah to de dete? He seems like a person who's happy being in the back seat. When he's bowling also, you don't see that reaction after getting a wicket. He goes about doing his job, and he's won the trophy. He's letting everybody else enjoy, and he's taking a back seat drive. If you're young, well, when they come back,
so this is, just to give you a perspective of the scale at which this business went. And I was personally present in this final of the Tri-Series when we handed over the key to Dhoni to drive this vehicle, which was spur of the moment. And it became a huge innovative and publicity across. Having said all of this and the plan that we did, ultimately, we could not sustain this company for very long. And in 2018, we had to announce the end of the road for Multics because the operation did not succeed. So I wanted to give you an example of this so that you get a perspective of how big a startup can go, and with the huge investments coming in, big players coming in, and very innovative marketing and all of that put together. But still the learning is that it did not succeed. And what learnings came out of this is something that I wanted to share with you. To stick to the basics, and even the best of the minds can fall into this trap. So a learning for all of you that if you have to make a successful startup, then what is important is the right kind of a people, the right kind of a product. Product has to be basically from your DNA. So your customer profile has to match with the profile that you are expert at, and then you make the products accordingly. Right promotion, right price, and a right place, like a distribution. 4 P's and the fifth P being people, all has to be in the right place for the product to be successful. I would be happy to answer more questions towards the end of the session on this. Now we move on now to what are the government initiatives which are being given right now for various steps to support the startups. So there are various initiatives, various departments working towards providing that special finance to support anywhere where we have large scale development, especially in the core areas, anything that can transform India into a global design and manufacturing head. So they're focused by more government support and minimum government and maximum governance being the slogan given by the government. In the Startup India, the promotion of entrepreneurship through innovation and design. Then we came up with Stand Up India, then Skill India. All these policies came in to support the startups. Now, in the eyes of law, the startup is like a private limited company or a registered partnership firm or an NLP in India. And the startup is considered up to the age of 10 years from the incorporation date. So the day that you incorporate the company or register the company in India, from that date for 10 years, it is seen as a startup. Also, the size of the company should not exceed 100 crore during this period. The moment you cross 100 crores, it's no more a startup. And activities that involve our innovation, development, product services, and all the scalable business model with high potential of employment generation. And that is the criteria for the government to support. And all these above conditions should be fulfilled. The process flow is to make a concept where the idea is towards a very innovative product development or services. Then you make these products, and then what is the technology that is coming in, what is the IP, and then development of products, how it is done, how your products are different. And so if all of this goes well, then there are eligible startups, and where the supports are more. And if there are any challenges on these, then the supports are minimal. The key stages are like to first have the validation of the business idea, identifying the gap in the market, and then making market potential of the market, prepare a 3 to 5 year business plan, and decide the startup location and what are the various entities that you would like to go in, do the SWOT analysis, and then you start looking for funding operations, decide what should be the employees and how you should retain them, make some SOPs, and to minimize risk, what can be done, various variance analysis to be done. So a pre-startup activity, then you have to have a startup activity, and then sustenance and expansion. And a lot of steps and government supports are available at various options. What you get at a startup stage is to go to represent to the authorities and claim incentives, or hire a good team, launch the product, focus on increasing scalability. And when you are at an expansion stage, that is when you get more funding options, and you go global, or you go outside, and you do mergers, acquisitions, and all of that. And the funding a startup is like, there are various modes. Most of you might be aware, but I've just listed down here. For the owner's capital, equity capital, that is the most important thing, because that gives the confidence to the fresh investors that owners are themselves committed to the project. And then there are some private placements opportunities where a non-promoter group will fund, like angel funding, seed funding, or venture capital funding. And then there are loans available from banks and financial institutions. Mostly it is through collaterals. But if you are in the core sector of activities, even government provides loans, or government supports loan and guarantees loan as well, if you are into the core sector, which is defined by Government of India. So these are again, some details on the promotion funding, how the investor funding happen, how does venture capitalists come in, and then The goal is that in the next, after you have done your initial 5 to 6 years of work and you have enough traction in the market, then maybe year 7, year 8, you go for the public listing of the company, and then you can expand your business depending upon the success that you have had so far. Some of the important C6Cs for funding the startup is to have a very strong, extensive business plan, showing the future projection, profitability, and what is the working capital requirements, what is the promoter's level of investment, and what are the reserves that you have, then the collaterals, what is the fair market value of the security that the company has, what is the undisputed title, and then what are the liquidity prospects in case anything bad happens, then capacity to repay if there are any challenges, then the profitability that has been shown is realistic, can the cash flows be managed for repayment of loans in any eventuality, and then what are the conditions like industry's regulatory environment. Sometimes the challenge happens that you bring a product and there are regulatory changes, like it happened in the case of Aysher Polaris. We launched a product which was a diesel product, and suddenly the government of India put a lot of restrictions on the diesel, and the cost that was the most important thing to reach out to the independent businessman became very high with the change in technology from a Euro 3 to Euro 4, and then government saying we'll skip Euro 5 and go to Euro 6. So the regulatory environment changes, and as a result, that creates a lot of bottlenecks. So people would like to know that if there are any changes that the government may do in the future, which will impact the funding for this. So consistency is again, that you have, what is the promoter's track record, how long they have been successful and what they have done to various entities that they've started. And also the management team that you have, what are the experience and the abilities. So in order to get these preparation for funding requirement, you have to work on the financial model, up to 5 to 10 years projection for the gross profit, net profit, then a valuation to be done for the equity share of the company from a registered valuer. Valuation of the company is the basis for negotiating the equity dilution at a later stage. And then what are the various types of instruments are available? You can go equity dilution, which is like mostly people don't want to do because the valuation would be very low when you start. And then there are options like preferential shares, where people can take the preferential share by investing into your company. So they get preference in case of liquidation. And also there are certain convertible debentures. So you have received from the investor, which can be later converted into equity. So all of that are the options available. Then there are like debt funding. What is required for debt funding is a detailed project report. If you go to any bank, this is something that they will look. Without this, you won't be able to move forward. If you have to get funding to your project, then you have to give an overall review of the project, and then various scenarios, global scenarios, India scenario, what are the market size, who are the competitors, various policies, demand drivers, analysis of the market, industry, and then your study findings, what you have, the project, what stage your project is, what have you done, and all the details, like if you have to put up a manufacturing plant, then the details of the investments on plant and machinery. If you have to develop the sourcing, supply chain, then the work that you have already done or you plan to do, all those things. Then patents, if you have any IPR for your products, then that, and your future plans. So all of that, it's like a very extensive report where all these details have to come in to make it easier for the funding to happen. And then there are various factors which can affect the valuation. Number one is the current investor's profile, who has invested. So if you have good investors available with you who have a proven track record, they are already successful, the probability of you getting funding is high, and the valuation would also be affected accordingly. So if you have basically an experience from a very high technology backup, like people working from IITs, IIMs, or international reputed organizations, then those profiles help, and also the past records of these investors. If they have invested into companies that have become big, that becomes very useful. So you can work on to get some big investor into your company. The chances of your evaluation is also that it will be good valuation, and at the same time you will get investors also easily. Number two is that what are the overall sales volume, what is the gross profit, and that changes the moment of gross profit or the net profit affects. It will change the valuation of the company. So a company which does not have even any product and all can also be valued at 2,000 or 5,000 crores, and the company which has already done business of 1,000 crores may be valued at maybe 200 crores or 300 crores. So it all depends upon, what are the volumes you are doing, what are the future projections, what is the gross profit you have, who are the current investors, what is the current situation of the products. Then also the weighted average cost of capital, what is the percentage of returns which equity investors and debt funders expect from the company. And the higher this WACC is means low valuation, and low WACC means high valuation. So what are the investors expect from them will also change your valuation accordingly. So normally these are like 40 to 60% as per detailed study which has been conducted by KPMG over a period of time. And the growth rate at which company will grow is a higher rate means high valuation, and the rate of changes, and if it is less, then accordingly it will be low. Mostly if you have around 8 to 10%, it is good, but it ranges between 3 to 8%. The capital expenditure also changes the valuation. Like as a startup, are valued discounted cash free flow, and it takes into consideration the cash to be spent on capital assets. So if the company operations are capital intensive, then it will affect your cash flows accordingly for low valuation. So all of these factors make the valuation change. So this is all that I wanted to share as part of the presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions related to this or outside also. Thank you. I'll just need a minute to get my charger in. My battery is dying.
It was such an amazing and informative session, sir. I hope our members have gained something precious today. So now I would like to take some questions from the chat box for the Q&A session.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So our first question is from Shriji. She's asking, to form a startup, how teamwork is an important factor?
Oh, that's very important. The teamwork is extremely important. What you get to know is that if you are making an effort in the right direction, the core is the people. Who are the people involved, and how are they working together as a team? So that's something which is very critical for the success. So you can get people who are not working as a team, then it's reverse. The challenge is very high. So teamwork is something which is, it's like a must. You can't afford to have any challenge on that.
Great, sir. Our next question is from Sheena. She's asking, if someone is looking to start a company, so how will it be beneficial for them in coming 5 years?
Just a sec. Yeah, Meda, I'm sorry. Can you just repeat the question? Yeah.
I'll repeat, sir. If someone is looking to start a company, how will it be beneficial for them in coming 5 years?
If you want to start up the company, this is the most appropriate time. All the growth stories that is happening in India is very, very promising. The overall, if you see the budget recently or the IMF projections, World Bank projections for India is all near double-digit growth in the next few years. And with the kind of the thrust that this government has done in the last 8 to 10 years, 7 to 10 years, is really going to be focused towards doing something very innovative and new in the country, and startups have to play a very big role in the success of all these initiatives. So I feel that if anyone gets into the startup, the next 5 years are very critical and very, if you have an innovative product, innovative suggestions, innovative services plan, so the next 5 years would be very critical, because the moment you start, the first uh, 5 years are the most important and formative years where you can prove, test your products and services and make an impact on the revenue that you are able to generate. And that will decide the scale to which you can take the company.
Great, sir. So our next question is from Madhav. He's asking, what is the biggest risk to the new startups in the initial days?
The biggest risk is not able to sustain during that period. So you have to really take care of your control on the expenses, and you have to take care on getting the required funding before you do the startup, and you be very strict on your fund management, because startups can be very well funded, so you get a lot of money and then you decide to spend at places which are not required, and then you actually end up drying up the resources for the relevant when the relevant investments is required, then you don't have the funds. So you have to be very responsible towards the project that you have, and you have to be like spending like your own money. You should not look at that you get an investment now, I mean, I have enough and I can do anything. As opposed to that, you should do it like it should be treated like your personal check. Any money going out of the company has to be like, would you spend if you were an individual doing it or not? So that is something which is the financial discipline, is something which I would say is most critical for the startup. And at the same time, the right investment to be also done, like what is required for the project to succeed and whether investment is relevant, has also to be done at the same time. So it's a very tight situation where you have to keep a very good control on the finance, and at the same time the necessary investment at the right place has to be done.
Great, sir. Moving on. Sneha is asking, what are the major factors to keep in mind for the gradual growth of startup?
Yeah, you have to do the SWOT analysis of the industry and your own strengths and weaknesses, and you have to be very prudent in making those plans, that whatever you commit, it has to be met, because everybody is watching the startup. So if you over project and under deliver, or under project and over deliver, the second situation is good, but it's also not very healthy from an investor point of view. So you have to do something which is like in the range of plus minus 10 to 15%. That is where the projections have to go, that what you are saying and what you are doing is matching, and it doesn't vary immensely from the plan that you have made. So that will give more confidence to the investors that you are a strong team and you are making do things which you planned.
Great, sir. Isha Chaudhary is asking, keeping in mind the modern trends of audience in the market, which segment should we focus on for the initial startup?
Oh, that's a very big question. There are so many things happening. So every field you can enter into, there are opportunities available. I come from a automobile background, so I can say that anything that you do right now towards the electric vehicle is the next big thing happening there. So you can get into that field. And a lot of other very innovative things are like, you have to actually identify the pain points, and then you can come out with a solution of the product. So the pain points right now in automobile is like a huge pollution. India figures in the top of like 20 cities in the top 100 cities are from India. So it's like almost every big city in India is figuring in the top polluted cities in the world. So we have to find a solution. So that's one segment. The second is like, because of these past 2 3 years, it would have been such a great session when we would have met in person, but we could not meet because of we are all going virtual. So it has some more advantages, but the disadvantage is that the personal touch is missing. Imagine we are meeting and we are talking one to one, the kind of a feeling that get transformed to each other. This one is very good to do virtual, but then there's a next step when you meet in person. That's not happening. It has also impacted people very badly, adversely. There are a lot of mental illness, which has happened in the last few couple of years. People are under distress, people have lost family members, so there's a pain areas in every household, almost everywhere. Even the philosophy of life has changed, so somebody thinks about, can we do something on that? Like you bring in the mental health improvement techniques, you bring in a software through which you can analyze and reduce depression of the people, give them solution there. That's another very big area. Improvement of the health infrastructure, we know that it collapsed when the peak of the this COVID happened. So can we do something where we can be very innovative, that if next time this something like this happens, can there be like counseling session through your software or through your websites, where you can support them so that they know exactly where they have to go. So all of that is very, very innovatively you can get into these sectors, healthcares. Then there are like basic food and, that no matter what happens, there are certain sectors that will continue to grow even during COVID time or healthcare issues. We don't know how many more years this problem would persist. Every time that we feel that this is the last year and the next year is even worse than the previous year. So every time we are facing a new challenge. So we don't know how long we are entering into this, whether the fourth wave or a fifth wave will be even deadlier than what we have seen or less. But can we prepare? Can you do something where you have a support system planned? So that can be very innovative, and those are sectors that you can think about getting into. Not much investments, it's a technology investment, and if you can create a backup to support. And even today's distressed people, youngsters, elderly who are left without children, or children who are left without parents, I mean, can we create some support system for them? So these are very interesting and innovative things that people can work upon. And likewise, you can have experts from various industries who can give you guidance. I can share about these two areas where I feel and my mind is working already.
So our next question is from Sheena Mehta. She is asking, everyone says that they want to be an entrepreneur. Nobody wants to enslave away working in banking, consulting, or law when they can change the world. So why does everyone want to be an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur is a very different animal altogether. You have to be out of the mind to do all of this, that you must be very innovative, and you must have something from within you that you want to make the change the word and do differently. That is where you can go and do something. I'm talking about the first time startup, not that your father is a businessman, you become a businessman. That is like naturally carrying forward the tradition. But if you are right now, you are not from a entrepreneurial background and you go into that, then you have to be really crazy idea has to be there in your mind. You may or may not succeed, but then that is something which you want to do something for the world, and that is where you want to be an entrepreneur rather than doing a regular job and going and giving advices rather than doing it yourself. So I would say that thought process of these individuals are very unique and very different, and you can identify that. When you're talking to a people, you will get to know that whether he's a risk taker, he wants to do something for the world, or he's just looking at myself. If I am a person who wants to be safe, I would better go for a job. And if I am a person who doesn't want, wants to do something very unique, very different, then I can be an entrepreneur. So depends upon what qualities you have, what is the strength that you have, what is the risk capability you have, will decide about whether you go in for a regular jobs or become an entrepreneur.
So our next question is from Harshita Khandelwal. She's asking, in what areas, branches of modern economics has recently seen the fastest growing business project?
There are a lot of innovative things that has happened in the last few years. The business, the outsourcing has become something which is very, very common now, like an American way of working. The traditional working that we had was like the economics were working on, like everything is centered into the one company. What's the modern economics is saying is that you keep the company very light, and focused onto your expertise area, and go into outsourcing. Have the lean management, very lean technologies, and the workforce has to be very lean. You get more output from the people that you employ rather than employing large workforce. And so those latest concept is really gaining popularity, where you are asset light and you are making something very big, and at the same time you are dependent upon a culture surrounding your company, where you create number of co-companies who support you in, and each of the co-companies are expert in their own field. So the modern situation in the economics front is that you don't create a company which is doing everything yourself, but you have a multiple companies, entrepreneurs coming together, and each one of them specialize into their field, and then cohesively work together and make so that becomes like a one strong company which has the core ideas and the multiple activities around that. So in today's scenario, that companies having completely outsourced finance, completely outsourced human resource, completely outsource the business development, supply chain, even manufacturing, contract manufacturing companies are doing very well. So this is a transition phase. A number of innovative factors are coming into the play, where the companies are being advised to be asset light and focused on a expertise into your area, and develop the economy accordingly. The core sectors, I would say, is like automobile contributes definitely the one of the very important and core sectors in India. It's almost contribute 30% plus of the GDP. Likewise, the agriculture sector, the others like hospitality, the medical, all of that is various new developments happening, innovative technologies coming into each of these sectors would decide about where do you want to, which sector you want to get into, and what exactly you would like to specialize in. But overall, what you have to think on is that you have to keep focused onto your product and services where you specialize completely, and develop an ecosystem where you have more resources available to support your initiative. So this is where we are moving ahead now.
So, Yash Shivani is asking, what are those prospects that should be kept in mind while giving a pitch to the investors?
Yeah, I mean, this is something which is very critical and important when you're giving a pitch. You have to be very confident about your project. You should have a very detailed working yourself. You should know all aspects of the business when you're pitching. Investors can ask you questions very unprepared. So you should do multiple round of practice before you go in front of an investor. It's very, to get an investor to buy your idea, you have to be totally into it. You should know every detail about your project and why your project will succeed. You should also be grilled by the investor to know why your project will fail. What do you think why your project will not be successful? So you should be prepared on that what are the parameters which can make your project fail, and then what controls you have to avoid that. So they would ask you very tough questions on why it will fail, and then they would like to know that whether you are prepared in that eventuality, what you will do. If the project is failing, what are your countermeasures you have, or already have you done anything on those lines to ensure that you don't fail? So these are some very common questions that will come from the investors, and I would say that watch Shark Tank. Shark Tank India is also there, so you will get to know that what are the various questions that are likely to be asked, and you should not be caught unawares. Your product samples, everything should be such that investors get interest into you.
Great. So we have an interesting question here. Madhav is asking, in the recent times, many student-based startups have emerged. We too have one from our college, Uncover Campus, which facilitates students to provide one-stop solution for all the needs of the college student. So what are your suggestions and advice for these beginners?
Yeah, as I already said, be very innovative, like the one that you just shared, that you have to identify the pain areas and find a solution. The moment you identify the pain area and find a solution, people will respond to it and they will avail. But what you have to be careful is what is the investment that you're giving into that, and what are the returns you are going to get. So any new innovative products and services that you start, it has to be sustainable, and you should be able to think about all these aspects of what team to be involved, what costs have to be incurred before you actually start making profits, and the break-even point, when is the break-even point coming, and how are you going to fund till the break-even point comes. And so the overall thought process, the 360-degree thought process, has to be gone through. That how does the product solve the problem of the end users, and how do you fund that, how do you give the returns to the people who fund you, and the gestation period, the 5 years long term view and detailed plan is something that you should work out. Thus you can, so it can be a very small project, like you said. You are bringing out how to make the life easy of the college students. Various any challenges come to one point and have, it's a great idea. But what is the investment going into it, and whether it is financially feasible or not? Because that is something where you have the most important challenge, is that whether you can sustain this. You can have a brilliant idea, but if you don't have the necessary finance to support it, at some stage it will come to a halt.
So our next question is from Isha Chaudhary. She is asking, in last few years due to pandemic, many government policies were changed. So how do you think it affected the marketing strategy of various firms?
The very lot of new development has happened, where government has increased the support structure in some of the key sectors, and government is very responsive right now. Like if you go and talk to them and you share with them that this is what you want to make the change, and this is what is going to make the difference, they are very receptive to including that in the new plans that they have. So the government policies that have changed is which is going to affect is like a big problems that the government is facing, like environment issues. We all know, and we live in North India, and we know how we pass through the winters, and there are so many casualties that happen because of this one problem. So the government changed the sector. Okay, Bharat is stage 4, Bharat is stage 5 emission norms. Skip Bharat stage 5, go to 6, so that the pollution is less through the vehicle. Now, this impacted many companies like Aisha Polaris also. And similarly, the next thing is like the government is saying, okay, we have to get into the electric vehicle. So what happens in the electric vehicle? You have a motor, controllers, batteries, but there is no engine. There is gearbox may or may not be required, and exhaust system is not required. Imagine you are manufacturing these components. So these are like the transition is happening, and so government is making a thrust and change towards incentivizing people who are buying electric vehicle by saying, okay, you get 10,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour if you buy electric vehicle, and this is the support. And there are no support for the petrol diesel vehicles. Now, as a result, there is a customer shift which is happening, and more so will happen in the next few years. So these type of policy changes that the government does in order to manage the challenges that they already have. Like I said about the pollution environment, the government is also concerned that not just the corona or the COVID problems that we face, it magnifies the environment, magnifies the pollution, magnifies the problem, and so they have to find out some solution. So the industries get adversely affected in that segment, and they try to find out something new, and that new is going to support new industries, but at the same time it is going to affect the current industries. So how quickly, and suppose that you are in that business where this transition is going to happen, what do you do at this time? Whether you get into a new industry and slowly start shifting towards that, so that your company is prepared in the new scenario. So those are things that you have to prepare yourself. And I think the government, like that, government is also responsive based on the market scenario. Business is dynamic, so is the country dynamics, with the changes happening every time new things comes up. So it's a threat from, say, if the neighbors threaten us, like we were into some threat from China or from Pakistan, then the defense outlay would be increased, and therefore the moment there is peace, the defense outlays will be reduced. So all these changes government will do depending upon what is going to happen, what they think is going to happen in future. And therefore, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, we have to look at the revised scenario and see where we should focus upon. And if we are into a benefit segment where government policy change is going to benefit us, we are very happy. But if it is, we are going to adversely affect, then what countermeasure we have to take in our segment is something we have to look at, or go back to the government to see if they can support you in any way in making the changes in the policies, or bring in some support so that during the transition period your company can sustain.
Thank you so much for answering, sir. I would like to thank all the participants for joining us today, and our guest of honor, Mr. Pankaj Dubey. Vidit, would you like to say something?
No, well, I think you have pretty much summed it everything. But I would like to take this opportunity to show my gratitude towards for taking out the time from his busy schedule. It really means a lot, sir. And we further want to connect with you for our further sessions. We hope we can impart so much knowledge from you over your experience. And it was really a great session, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
So we will
Vidit.
be.
Thank you, Meda, and I'm happy to support any of your initiatives. I dedicate myself to the students who want to do any startups. I would provide my voluntary services to all of them to be successful in whatever way. So that's my life goal, is to change the country's dream of becoming, Sone Ki Chidiya again. And I know that youngsters like you can really make that happen. And therefore, I would like to help all of you in whatever plans that you have. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Mira has my contact details, so you can reach out to her to get.
So we will be having more such informative sessions. So till then, stay tuned with us. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.
Our next session will be at 3 p.m. So you all are requested to leave this meeting, and we'll start again at 3 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone.